Hello, one and all, and welcome to Film Fragments, a podcast where we take fragments of an actor, director, or genre and tell you our favorites from their catalog. My name is Bryan. I'm your host, and I'm very excited to welcome you guys to this week's episode of Film Fragments. This is a pretty special episode for me, I'm not going to lie, not only because of the topic that we're going to be talking about, but this guest. Let me tell you guys something. I have known this guest for a very, very long time. Many years ago, when I was just a wee little lad, I decided, oh, hey, I'm going to do YouTube videos. And I came across this particular YouTuber and I'm like, wow, he swears a lot, but he loves movies. I'm going to I'm going to subscribe to him and see what content he throws my way. And then we became friends. We did a podcast together for honestly a really long time, which kind of was the basis for this show, and I'm really excited to have him on. Guys, it is such an honor to welcome Chase Lee to Film Fragments. Chase, my friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It feels weird, like you said, because we did this for several years, and so yeah, it's great to be back, just shooting the shit and just talking movies.
It feels so surreal, like we were talking about off air. We've literally known each other for almost 10 years at this point. It's crazy. I was in high school when you were doing your podcast, and now you're still going on with the podcast. It's incredible how you're still continuing and everything. It's really just like, honestly, like, no disrespect to any of the guests I've had on so far and any of the guests I'm going to have down the road, but this is a pretty special one for me because we've been friends for so long. So really, it's Chase, seriously, it's such an honor to have you on here. I'm so
I
excited.
I appreciate that, man. It's even crazier. Like we did that so long ago. That was 4 places ago for me. Like I was in an apartment when Bryan and I started doing that show. Then I transferred to a house, and then to another house, and now I'm back to an apartment. So like that's how many years have gone by since we've done that show. It's just absolutely insane.
It's insane. It's so crazy how much time has got. Like, I was literally in college when we did that show, and now I'm almost 3 years out of college, and it's like, oh my god, like literally so much. Also, I think the last time we did the show, I didn't have any facial hair, so now so many things that
No,
you didn't have facial hair either.
no. I grew up the beard as well, and so yeah, that's a great observation because I was like, what in my 20s when you reached out to me and you were like, you were just a fan, and I was like, hey, what's going on, man? And I was like, and we just started talking. I was like, hey, you like movies? Let's start doing a show together, and so that was fun. But yeah, it was just we both have grown up. Now I'm in my 30s, and now you probably look at me as an old man, and I appreciate that.
I think I'm literally the age that you were when I reached out to you. I think that's how, like, I'm 24, and I think that's how old you were when I reached out to you. Oh my God, time is literally a blur. It's absolutely insane. What are we talking about today, guys? We're talking about our favorite A24 films. This was an incredibly difficult list to make. Hundreds of films released over the past 10 years. I mean, the studio is such a game changer. But before we talk about A24, I got to ask Chase a really interesting question. So, this is going to be very tough. If you could take one character, guy or girl, and you could pick a guy and girl, it doesn't really matter to me, out to dinner, where it's with family, friends, or yourself, which A24 character would it be? It's a really
Man,
tough
yeah.
question, but I would be curious to know your answer.
All right, let me just go over my list of like 50 movies I have on here. Let me just kind of go through it really quick. Uh, I'm just going to go through some process of elimination. Obviously, you can't do Swiss Army Man just because you would have to carry around that corpse the entire time. With like Uncut Gems, I feel like he'd just be too anxious the entire time, and like I don't want to deal with that because I want to enjoy my meal.
He would also make you
If
pay
I
for the meal too.
He would make me pay for it. It's just not proper etiquette. With American Honey, I feel like the dinner would go on too long, just like the movie did. So with me, man, I'd either take I'll take Jonathan Majors from Last Black Man in San Francisco or uh Aquafina from The Farewell.
Oh,
I think she'd be fun.
those are great choices. I love both of those choices. Oh man, it's a good choice. For me, in terms of guys, I'm gonna go with, because his conversations will be so intellectual, I'm gonna go with David Foster Wallace from the end of the tour in terms of guys.
Your dinner
Eh,
would be like 7 hours long. It'd be
Hey,
incredible. You just
listen,
ask
that's
him
totally.
every question.
Hey,
Yeah,
listen, it would be totally fine. It would feel like a Richard Linklater movie. That's totally fine with me.
perfect.
And then in terms of girls, oh my God. Um, oh God, no, all these women are crazy in these movies.
That's true.
Um,
You want to go to dinner with Tony Collette and have her just scream at you the entire time?
no. And then I was like, oh, what about Lady Bird? She would probably scream about something to me as well. Um, oh man, this is really difficult. I think I'm gonna have to go with you know what? I'm gonna go, because she is a film major like I was and like you were. I'm gonna go with Arnold Swinson Burns' character from The Souvenir. We would talk about
Okay.
film, we would talk about all this other stuff and everything. And like I would have definitely picked Aquafina from The Farewell, because I mean she seems like a delight to be around, but I don't want to copy your answer, so I decided to go with something different. But yeah, I mean, it's so tough to answer that question. And I mean, regarding A24, and we'll get to them again, just a nice teaser. So, Chase, talk a little bit about yourself. Talk a little bit about what got you into film. Talk a little bit about your podcast and what you do over there. And talk a little bit about some of your favorite films of all time.
Yeah, so I've loved film since I was a child. So I was born in 1990. So 1989 to 1993 or 94, the Disney Renaissance, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King. I get to see all that before the age of 5, and that's what got me to want to do this. So I actually, so when people ask like, what did you want to be when you grow up or whatever, I was like, I want to be a filmmaker. So I've been chasing that dream since I was a kid, and so I've always wanted to entertain people. I went to film school. I put myself in a lot of my projects. I wrote a lot of stuff. I did a lot of comedies. That was a lot of fun. Um, and then yeah, and then I eventually left school, and so I started my YouTube channel. I had my YouTube channel for many years before 2013, which ironically enough, Spring Breakers was my first film to get back into movie reviewing, and that is an A24 film. That's how long I've been doing this. But yeah, so I started up the YouTube channel once again. And then I have a podcast that I started in 2013 as well. Reel Me In, Cole and the Movie Podcast. I have over 300 episodes. More than that, it's insane. I try to do it weekly still, but as Bryan and I were talking off air, life gets in the way sometimes. But that is okay as long as you're transparent with people that this is like people will understand. Life happens, but yeah. So I have a podcast going, and yeah, I just watch movies in my spare time, just like Bryan here, and TV shows, you name it. Love all types of content. Some of my favorite movies of all time. Once again, if you're talking about going back to when I was a kid, I watched it probably way too young, but one of the films that got me like to love movies, because it came out in '93, was Jurassic Park. Like that was like the sweet spot for me because I was a kid. Probably shouldn't have watched it because it scared the crap out of me, but like that was the one. And then of course I trailed back and watched like E.T. and Jaws and stuff, and I was like, cool, this Steven Spielberg guy is pretty dope. And so I followed him, and then I got really really gritty, and then I started following Martin Scorsese films. And then when I was a teenager, I actually was so fascinated with like the over the top gory films, like to a point where it was just absurd and ridiculous and not any way realistic. So I looked up a list and I saw movies like Dead Alive and Evil Dead, and I got into horror that way. So I've just kind of been all over the place. One of the other influential movies, 9 years old when I saw it, because I wanted to do comedies when I got older, American Pie. Like that movie shaped me as a kid, probably because I was a 9 year old that wanted to see some boobies, but it was still a funny movie. It's still iconic to me. There's so many lines from that have become iconic. So yeah, that was
How
another influential.
traumatized were you as a 9-year-old watching a kid fuck a pie?
I mean, I don't think my 9 year old mind like comprehended that at that point. I was like, oh, that's goofy. Man's butt right there. It's just like, nah, do you know what he's doing?
Oh my God, that's great stuff. It's great stuff. And speaking of great stuff, A24, I mean, they put out so many films that have been regarded as some of the best, not only of the past few years, but future classics. And they've tackled practically every genre. It's insane. They are able to do films that cater towards mainstream audiences, and then they're able to do films that really cater towards the cinephiles like you and me. So I have to ask you, why do you think a lot of people love A24 so much? Like, what makes A24 stand out compared to all the other studios that we have working today?
If you look at their list of movies, I think it's pretty clear to me. In a lot of smaller companies, like they do this as well, but I think A24 does it better. Every single genre has been tackled by them: comedy, sci-fi, horror, drama, thriller, suspense, all of it. Even as something as like crappy that looks like a Disney Channel movie with barely lethal. That's an A24 film. They've done it all, and it was kind of going back to your point with like it appeals to everyone. It does. Like everyone has a genre they can go to. You can have something as bizarre and something that's going to completely mess people up, like Under the Skin, and then you can have a film like Gloria Bell, which is literally just about Julianne Moore trying to find herself at age 65. It's very sweet, it's very charming, and like that's the difference. Like they have a little bit for everyone. So, and like even with this year, with like something as radical as like X and Pearl against Everything Everywhere All at Once, two completely different genres, two different
Marcel the Shell
styles.
with
Like
shoes on.
Marcel the Shell with shoes on, and even stuff like Bodies, and Men That Can't. The Sky is Everywhere. That was a little
Literally
film that
everywhere.
no one has heard about that movie. That is the A24 film that came out earlier this year. That's what I'm saying. Like they've done it all. So I think that's what makes them so special. And of course, like when you start making movies that people are talking about over and over again, they're going to always stay in the conversation. And I think it really helps that in 2017, what happened? They finally broke ground and they got their Best Picture Oscar for Moonlight. So it's like that really propelled them to the stratosphere. So yeah, I cannot believe in the short amount of time they've been alive as a company, they've done this much.
It's insane. It's truly insane that they've, first of all, that they, it took a while for them to find their footing. And then they start getting these really high profile filmmakers to make films with them and these really high profile actors to make films with them too. Like, if you just look at what they've done in the past, like, I would say 2 to 3 years. I mean, you look at stuff that they've done, it's insane the amount of talent that they've gotten. I mean, they've worked with Sophia Coppola, David Lowery, Mike Mills. I think when they announced that they were doing Macbeth with Joel Cohen directing and then Denzel Washington, who had never done an A24 movie before, I mean, that was like a huge deal. That was a gigantically huge deal. Will that make the list? We'll have to see. So this is going to be very fascinating because me and Chase were talking. Of course, this was going to be a difficult list to make because, I mean, first of all, there's hundreds of films to choose from, but also a lot of them are good. Like, yeah, they have some misses, as does every studio, but when they hit, they really fucking hit. So, man, this is going to be so much fun to hear Chase's list. So I say without further ado, let's just get right into it. So, Chase, what is your number five favorite A24 film of all time?
Well, before I get into my number five, I wanted to give you guys a glimpse into my 6 through 10 because these are ones that were there but just could not make it, right? So at number 10, excuse me, I have The Farewell. Once again, we talked about that. Aquafina, great family film, great just kind of generational film about families and like what it means for different eras and everything. Number 9 is The Disaster Artist. I love movies that are about Hollywood, and this is such an iconic story from the Tommy Wiseau. The Room is one of the best movies of all time, and I mean that sincerely. It is truly a cultural imprint. So that's number 9. Number 8, I have where we got the Amy Winehouse documentary. I'm gonna admit I never read into her. So like when people were talking bad about her and like she just did drugs and everything, like I'm like, oh, that's unfortunate. Probably should lay off the drugs. I probably said something stupid and ignorant like that. But when you watch this documentary, you get a whole like just different perspective on her, and it blows your
Absolutely.
mind, and you're like, wow, first of all, she was super talented as a singer. I had never heard her music. I thought she was one of those like Ashley Simpson type people where they just auto tune bullshit and all that stuff. But no, fantastic documentary. Their documentaries are quite on point. Also, didn't make my list, but Val with Val Kilmer. Watch
Fantastic.
that one. Yep. Number 7, The Spectacular Now. You know, it was like their second film they ever did, or third film, because it was like Ginger and Rosa, Spring Breakers, and The Spectacular Now. I love this one. I love me a good romance film. And of course, Miles Teller, Shailene Woodley, good stuff. And then number 6, Good Time. And I didn't even put Uncut Gems on my list. And you're probably wondering, why did I do that? I think, as of right now, I think Good Time is better because it also gave us the wonderful gift of Benny Safdie, which when he was casting himself in the movie, because him and his brother Josh do all the movies, he blew me away as a supporting actor. Like, he actually held up his own against Robert Pattinson. I could not believe it. So that's why I put it at number 6. Sorry, number 5. All the films that I picked, like Bryan, I love. Like, it was super hard to condense this down. So when I see a movie for the first time and I'm absolutely floored by it, and I just know in my gut, this is going to be a classic down the line, but for right now, it's a classic to me. I don't like putting fresher ones on the list because I need time for them to marinate. But I'm telling you right now, the only reason it's at 5, because like I said, it's the newest one. It's Everything Everywhere All at Once. I firmly believe that this film is going to have a bigger impact than people think it will. I think it will be a cult classic. I think it's going to garner a bigger following. And I said this after the screening because Joel was with me, Bryan. I said this, and I still firmly believe this. And Joel can quote me on this. I said, we just saw the best Oscar winner for original screenplay. I think that is the only award it's going to get, because this is a culturally phenomenal like film. Like, people know about this. I think it's going to have some type of momentum, and it's going to get that original screenplay. Mark my words. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat crow. But for right now, I'm positive. The reason why it was very, I guess, impactful for me is that, first of all, I was like at my early stages of divorce, still going through it. But like, Bryan has seen the movie. It opens up with 2 characters about to get a divorce. So I was already like an emotional wreck. So not only that, it is a fantastical, weird, offbeat film. Sure. But it's creative, it's funny, it's engaging. It's the best multiverse movie we've had this year. Now, I'm a huge Marvel fan. You know which one I'm talking about. But at the core of it, it's a relationship between a mother and her daughter. And I think that's a universal theme that we can all grasp onto. There's someone in our life, whether it be a parent or an aunt, an uncle, whatever, grandparent that raised you. Everyone's got their person in their life that they've had struggles with, they don't really connect with. But deep down, they still love each other, and they find that connection later on in the movie when, things seem completely just disheveled. They eventually come together in one of the most heartbreaking scenes of the entire year. And I remember like seeing this and thinking to myself, like, this is the best movie of the year so far. And we're almost in October, and I haven't had anything touch it yet. Like, that's how special it is to me, and that's why I'm comfortable with saying it as my number 5. I think it's gonna hold the test of time and be one of the better ones that people talk about.
Yeah, you know what's funny? It's still my favorite film of the year as well. There has not been a film that has topped this one for me as well. Unfortunately, it did not make the list. It was very close. It was just right there. It was so close to making the list. Yeah, I mean, as a fan of the Daniels previous collaboration, Swiss Army Man, I was already like through the roof excited for this. I didn't really watch any of the trailers. I just had known that they were making another movie and that the brilliant Michelle Yeoh was leading in. I'm like, all right, I'm sold. I'm in. And then I heard it was a multiverse movie. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I'm intrigued, and it went completely in a different route than I was expecting, because I was under the impression that for like a good chunk of it was just going to be a fun, entertaining movie with some heart in it. No, then it gets a lot deeper, and then I started to cry, and I'm like, what the actual fuck? And that's why I found a way to catapult to the top of my favorites of the year list, and it still hasn't been moved down. And to be honest, I mean, now we're at the point of the year where a lot of great films are coming out, but I personally don't know if anything's going to top it. And if that's the case, then this will be the first time in forever to where a film that came out so early in the year stayed as my number one. The last time I think that happened was when I saw Sing Street back in 2016. I think that came out around like late March, early April, and that was my top favorite for almost a whole year. Like that never happens to me. So the fact that it happened with this kind of movie, and obviously there's still a few more months to go, but I mean, this movie left an impact that I didn't anticipate it leaving. Everyone walked out of this movie loving it. Obviously, there's probably some people out there that weren't fans of it, and that's okay. That's totally fine. But it's very ambitious. It's wild. It's bonkers. It's unpredictable. The acting is phenomenal. Michelle Yeoh is incredible. Stephanie Sue is fantastic. But Ki Hu Kwan, oh my God. In my personal opinion, he should win Best Supporting Actor. I think he's the one that should take home the award. What a comeback performance, truly. I mean, he was a kid when he was popular. He did Temple of Doom and the Goonies, and then he was gone for many years, and then he comes back delivering this incredible performance that was entertaining, but also just super heartfelt. And I never thought that I would watch a movie where I would cry at a scene with rocks. I mean,
The Daniels will make that happen. Trust me.
and I commend them truly, and I agree. This should walk away with the screenplay Oscar. Will that end up happen? I have no idea. But I mean, the concept is just so grand and unique that like, how could you ignore this? Like seriously. Now, obviously, we don't know how the award season's going to play. A24, if you're listening to this right now, you better campaign the shit out of this movie. Don't fuck around with this movie. Campaign it like the way you campaigned Moonlight and Room and Amy. You got to campaign the fuck out of this movie.
Hey, listen, it's their highest grossing movie they've ever done. I think they're going to use some of that money to just feed it back into
first
it.
one to gross $100 million plus. Michelle Yeoh just won a whole like a tribute award at TIFF, and she's like getting a lot of recognition from the critic outlets. I have a feeling this is going to do pretty well at the Oscars. Will it win anything? I have no idea. And also, just I have to commend the practical effects work here. I mean, a lot of practical effects here. It's really impressive. And you know what? One of the funniest moments I've ever seen, Jamie Lee Curtis, her gut just disappearing. That was absolutely insane. Man, the movie's great. I mean, guys, if you haven't seen the movie at this point, I mean, come on. Like, it's probably the most talked about movie of the year so far. One of the most talked about movies of the year. And yeah, it's incredible. It's so, so good. So my number 5, I'm going to go with my favorite film from 2018. Now, my top 2 films from 2018 were A24 films. And these films interchange all the time for me when it comes to ranking that year. But I went with my gut, and I realized that my true favorite film of 2018 was First Reformed. That's my number 5. So Ethan Hawke is one of my favorite actors of all time. I've loved the guy pretty much my whole life. I mean, I grew up watching some of the stuff that he was in when he was younger. And then, of course, as I got older, I started watching Training Day, Dead Poets Society. And of course, I went through all the films that he had done with Richard Linklater, like the Before trilogy and Boyhood. He's done so many different things. So when it was announced that he was going to be leading a film written and directed by Paul Schrader, one of the best writers I think we've ever gotten. I mean, he's collaborated with Martin Scorsese so many times. I mean, he wrote Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. The guy's a visionary. And this film, and I remember so well when I went to go see this. So I got a chance to interview Ethan Hawke right before I saw the movie. He was promoting this film that he had directed at this local film festival that I was going to, which First Reformed happened to also play at. And he had told me that I was going to feel depressed during and after the movie. And I said, Ethan, I'm sure I won't, but thank you for the kind words. And he was right. This movie broke me in so many ways that I wasn't expecting. How did Ethan Hawke not get nominated for Best Actor for this? It's criminal that he didn't get nominated. This is one of the best performances, honestly, maybe the best acting he's ever done, which is saying a lot because he's given great performance one after the other. But what I really liked about the movie was that with a lot of Paul Schrader's other films, he's really good at tackling characters that have broken pasts that basically come back to haunt them, and they're not able to let go from that. Ethan Hawke's character in this, he's a committed pastor, priest, whatever. He's working at this church that's kind of become a tourist attraction, but it's still like, it's basically on the verge of going away. And he tries to do everything he can to save this church. And then he stumbles across Amanda Seyfried, whose husband was a soldier and he's experiencing PTSD, but there's also a lot more things going on with him. And then on top of that, Ethan Hawke's character, he drinks a lot. He does not take care of his health. There's a really incredibly haunting shot where he's drinking, I think, bourbon or whiskey. Then he pours like Pepto Bismol in it and then drinks that. And oh my God, I don't know if I've ever heard a gulp so loud in a theater when I saw, like, oh my God, that is, and the ending is one of my favorite endings of all time. Don't know if it was real. Don't know if it was in his head. I'm still figuring that out. I remember when Paul Schrader came on stage and he asked, how many of you think the end actually happened? Half of the audience raised his hand. And he's like, yeah, I'm still figuring that out myself. I love when a director is like that about their films. I love First Reformed. Fantastic film. It was tough because this almost didn't make the list, but it left a bigger impact on me than I thought it would. And again, I'm glad that the screenplay got nominated. It's a fantastic screenplay. But Ethan Hawke not being nominated is ridiculous, and he should have won the Oscar. If I was in charge of the Oscars, I 100% would have given him the award. I know people could say, "Oh, Bradley Cooper for A Star Is Born," or hell, even Christian Bale in Vice gave a great performance. Anyone should have beat Rami Malek. I'm sorry, that's a whole different discussion for another time. But yeah, First Reformed is my number 5. So I don't think this is on your list, but I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this film.
It is not on my list, but I did like that movie quite a bit. I've liked it more uh, than the card counter or whatever that one was last year. So I'm hoping his next one is at least good. If not, then the First Reform will take the cake. But yeah, I remember watching that at the what was the Dallas Film Festival, and yeah, I was blown away by Ethan Hawke's performance, as we all are. And of course, just the idea of this man like trying to wrestle with like himself and like faith and everything. Like you said, he's just deteriorating right before our eyes, and we don't know like if the ending is real or not because he was not mentally well. Just a great character study of a film and really something for Ethan Hawke to sink his teeth into. So yeah, it's a really good one.
And who would have thought that Cedric the Entertainer would give a great performance?
Yeah, I totally forgot he was in that. Like, yeah, he was really great.
That was absolutely wild. So now going into our number 4 is, what is your pick?
All right, so my number 4, I'm going to do something a little lighter before I get into the more messed up stuff. Bryan already knows which one's already on there somewhere. But my number 4, when I first saw this, I remember when the movie was done and I just kind of sat there as the music was swelling over the credits because the score is also just absolutely wonderful. I was thinking to myself, like, wow, like this was an experience. I felt like I just watched like this classic film from like the 60s or something, the way it was shot, the colors that were being used, the story of friendship and what it means to have a home somewhere. And when you actually leave and come back and you don't recognize that home anymore, like that's something that's just absolutely heartbreaking because we cherish like our childhood and our hometowns and just how we grew up. And I had seen Hostiles before this movie. I'm aware that he did more before this, but The Last Black Man in San Francisco also gave me the gift of Jonathan Majors, and I rallied for him supporting actor that entire year. I was like,
Oh,
the
dude.
speech in the attic is still one of my favorite scenes that this whole company has even done.
Oh,
There's like 100 plus movies on this list, and like that's one of the scenes that I remember, and that's what I judge my whole list on, is like which one like impacted me in the theater as I saw it, which ones have I rewatched multiple times, and so the Last Black Man in San Francisco is just absolutely just divine. Just I think it's perfect. Like there's nothing wrong with that movie from a technical level, performances, the way the movie is shot. It makes San Francisco look so gorgeous, but at the same time, like the main character is going back to his home, and the home is being sold off, and he just doesn't recognize it anymore, and like the whole area is just like it's fixed up, and it's like this rich pompous area now. It's just a really great kind of a soulful journey of just trying to like find out where your home is, and like just all that stuff. And Jonathan Majors plays the best friend, and I couldn't remember, Brian, did he have like a did he have like a lisp, or was he just like anxious? Like he couldn't talk for like a long time.
I think he was just really anxious. I don't remember if he had a list or not. I've only seen the movie once. I haven't seen it since it came out. It's been so long. I've wanted to go back to this one for so long, so long.
Yeah. Well, and well, I guess what I was trying to say is like if I could remember like what he had in the movie, the reason why it's so important is because he is kind of shy. He's just kind of there with his friend and everything. He doesn't really say much. And so at the very end, when he is trying to be the voice of reason, the conscience, the person reflecting back everything that we are trying to yell at the main character, he does it for us in this really passionate speech to his friend. And I was like, this guy's gonna be a star. And little did I know he was in Hostiles before that with Christian Bale. But I was like, this man's gonna go places. I cannot wait to see. And of course, Lovecraft Country. He's gonna be in Creed 3 here pretty soon. And he's doing like big blockbusters like the Marvel stuff, but he still does smaller stuff. The guy's incredible. And so it gave me the gift to him for the first time. And it's also just a really it's just a really passionate movie. Just from a filmmaking perspective, it's just so well crafted. Just so it's just a beautiful looking film, beautiful feeling film. Yeah, that's my number 4 pick.
God, that movie is fucking great. That's a great fucking movie. And, I also was ruined very hard for Jonathan Majors against supporting actor. I was also ruined for the screenplay to get in. The screenplay was incredible. I don't know how this was not recognized. That was a great year for A24. There may be a film from that year on my list as well. I mean, yeah, I remember being floored by the movie because, like you said, it's about someone revisiting their home and not ready to let it go. And, that's something that I think we all go through in some capacity, whether it's, when we go to school or when we move to a different city or a different place in this case. It's truly incredible. The shot that stuck out to me, one of the many shots that stuck out to me, it was very early on in the movie. And you see this shot of these kids playing baseball or whatever. They're playing with the balls. So the kid like grabs what is supposedly the ball, and it's a camera, throws the camera, and it goes down to the kid and like hits his eye. And in my head, I'm like, how the fuck did they do this? Like, you and I off air, we're talking about, not A24 related, but James Cameron with Avatar. And we're just like, how did he do this? That shot, I don't know how they did it. This film is great. And it's one of the more underappreciated A24 films. Critically, it has a huge following, but when you talk about A24, and obviously it's hard because there's hundreds of films, but this is one that really deserves more recognition when going through their catalog, because this is an absolutely fantastic film. And yet, I mean, seriously, Jonathan Majors is one of the best actors that we have working today. I have not seen Lovecraft Country, but everything I've seen him in terms of film, I've been very floored and blown away by. I wasn't too crazy about The Harder They Fall, but I thought he was fantastic in that. And I'm excited to see what he does in Creed 3. I mean, he got really jacked for it. I'm very excited for that. And of course, as someone who isn't as crazy about the MCU as Chase is, I'm very excited to see what he does as Kang the Conqueror. I think, like, if you're going to cast anyone to play that character, I mean, you got to cast. Yeah, I'm so excited to see what he brings to that character. Like, the little tease that we got of him in Loki already sold me on his addition to the MCU. I'm so excited to see what he brings for the rest of his career. Yeah, Last Black Man in San Francisco, truly fantastic film. I'm bummed it didn't make the list, but it was definitely very high in the honorable mentions for me. So My number four, I am going to go with the film that I really think got A24 a lot more notoriety. This was a little independent film. It was one of A24's first self-produced films. They premiered it at all these film festivals. It got universal acclaim. It swept a lot of awards, and then it ended up being the very first A24 film to win the Oscar for Best Picture. I'm talking about Moonlight, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, when I walked into this movie, I knew it was going to be something special. Like I knew that this was going to be something that was going to hit me really hard and leave quite an impact on me and everybody, but I did not think it was going to leave the impact that it did. I was very impressed with this film. Like the acting across the board is literal perfection. Like there's not a single weak link in the cast. The dialogue is amazing. Every single character has their moment to shine. Even the characters that have one scene, you still care about them and you're still invested in what they're doing. And Barry Jenkins, his direction was just something so like his style. I felt like he had directed movies for 20 years. This was, I believe, only his second feature film. And it felt like the guy had been making movies for a long time. I mean, this is a movie that really anyone can relate to. It's discovering yourself, first love, figuring out who you are and your purpose in this world. It's a very universal story that anyone can relate to. And I love that about this movie so much. It's engaging. It never skips a beat. This movie does not drag whatsoever. There's not an ounce of fat to be found. All the actors that play Chiron are amazing. All of them are amazing. And then you have Naomi Harris as Chiron's mom, who, I mean, it was so different from anything I had ever seen her in. She had only shot her stuff in 3 days because then she had to go back to, I think, England. I think that's where she's from. And then she got an Oscar nomination for it. And then we got, in my opinion, one of the top 5 best A24 performances of all time in Mahershala Ali, who really became a father figure to Chiron in just a short amount of time. And for just being in that first act of this movie, I mean, he delivered what I thought was really the performance of the year. Like, I think that was the best performance I saw that entire year. And that was a great year. 2016 was a fantastic year for film, but that performance, I mean, he was a very flawed character, Juan, the character of Juan, but he left quite an impact on Chiron. And then he left quite an impact on the audience. And Mahershala Ali swept that entire season. He won the Oscar. He won all the awards. A really beautiful performance. And then I have to just gush about the filmmaking on display. The imagery is incredible. I don't understand how this didn't win Best Cinematography. Look, I love La La Land. It's a great fucking movie. And the imagery there was absolutely gorgeous. But Moonlight cinematography, the colors, the different colors that are used when transitioning to the different acts was really brilliant. And also the fantastic score by Nicholas Bertel, who, in my opinion, is becoming one of the best composers working today. And Chase knows this. Chase knows this because, like me, Chase is a massive fan of Succession. And we know that the music on that show is literally banging. Like, it's jaw-dropping how different the scores are from Moonlight and Succession. It's incredible. And yeah, James Laxton's imagery and then the editing and the score. I mean, it's incredible. And this movie did so well. It cost $1.5 million to make. It grossed over $65 million. That is amazing. That's incredible to me. This little independent film took home so much acclaim, and then it ended up winning the Oscar for Best Picture. It is currently listed as the second lowest grossing film domestically to win the Oscar for Best Picture. It is the first LGBTQ film with an all-black cast to win Best Picture. Mahershala Ali became the first Muslim to win an acting Oscar, and Joe McMillian, one of the editors, became the first Black woman to be nominated for an editing Oscar. I mean, this was a game-changing film on so many levels. I love the film so much. And, with its subject, it could be a little hard to rewatch, but honestly, it's one of those films that I've seen quite a lot, actually, more than I ever anticipated. And I mean, it floored me. I remember just going to see this casually on a Monday afternoon. I had no more class for the day. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go downtown and catch a movie. And then I'm like, oh, Moonlight. And then I start crying in the fucking Uber on the way back. And it literally floored me. I mean, this film is truly monumental, and it's one of the best films of the past 10 years. It's one of the best films of the century so far. It, quite frankly, maybe one of the best films I've ever seen. Yeah, Moonlight is incredible. So, are you gonna pass, or is this not on your list?
I think you know what I'm going to say. I'm going to pass.
Yes, I do. Yes. So now, let's go over our number threes. What do you got?
All right. So, number 5, kind of weird, but it's a relationship movie between mother and daughter. Number 4, very sweet little movie. Got some friendships in it and stuff. It's nice for the kids, The next two are gonna be fucked up because this is how I roll. This is how I do in terms of like how my brain works. It's like I love sweet romance stories, and then I'll watch something really fucked up and be like, I like that. So yeah, so I don't, just to put in perspective, I don't have Midsommar, Killing of a Sacred Deer. I would even consider The Green Knight to some extent a slight horror film. The Lighthouse, a lot of great stuff. But my number 3, I campaigned for this movie all year. It was my favorite film of that year. It is probably the only film in A24's history where I was legitimately shocked a specific performance was not nominated in any capacity. Because, like, some of these, I might like the performances, but, like, let's be honest, some of them, they're not going to compete with voters. I get that. But how in the flying fuck did Toni Collette not get nominated for Hereditary? I that's the one that has baffled me next to Jake Gyllenhaal for Nightcrawler. Those two the past 10 years have been the ones that I've always talked about. But
seriously,
Hereditary, it's a great horror film. It's not really anything that's too deep. It's a horror film that plays on like family lineage and how genes are passed through each era and stuff. It's a metaphor for that and stuff, but so it's not like anything that's like, oh my god, like it's not David Lynch and the Twin Peaks: The Return type of shit, but it's a self-contained horror film. You know what the themes are. It's all about family lineage, but it's just a really well done horror film in terms of atmosphere, tone, the direction from Ari Aster. I like what he's done so far, and I'm looking forward to his next one with Joaquin Phoenix. But what a great start to your career with this one. It's my favorite part about the entire film, besides Colette's performance, is the utilization of dollhouses and the cinematography. How everything was so like how Wes Anderson does it. It's very stationary. It's very symmetrical type of cinematography. It's got the 4:3 aspect ratio, so it's boxed in, so it looks a little creepier. But it's well shot, well lit, and it really just reminds you of like an elevated, like haunted house that Ari was playing with inside of their house, because it's like 2 floors and everything. And then oh god, forgive me. Sometimes I mix their names up. Bryan, which of the Wolf brothers is in it? Is it Alex or Nate?
It's Alex Wolff.
Or Nat. Oh yeah. So yeah, Alex Wolff. That was my kind of like first introduction to him. And then I know like his brother was like in a YA novel, like The Paper Towns, I think. But
that Fall on Our Stars.
That's right. Yeah. Wait, Fall on Our Stars. That's Ansel Elgort.
Wait. No, he was Nat Wolff played the friend in Fall on Our Stars.
No shit. Well, this is why I ask these questions, ladies and gentlemen, because sometimes the Wolf brothers confuse me, because they both have similar faces.
They
But
do
yeah,
look alike.
but Alex was really incredible in this because like he looked like a teeny bopper actor to me. Like, oh, like he's just like one of those like Disney channels. Like, no,
I literally grew up with
no,
him on Nickelodeon. He was in the Naked Brothers band,
or
and then he did stuff like this, and it's like, what the fuck?
okay, so I wasn't imagining it. Like he looked like a Disney Channel star or something, but Bryan has it Nickelodeon. So, but yeah, he was fantastic in it. And then the climax is really great. It was the first A24 film with a naked elderly person. Uh, but that'll always be a running joke with me. But yeah, Hereditary is just a well done horror film. It's elevated to the next level with a performance that creeps me to my nerves every single time. It has the same intensity as I'm trying to think of like really explosive performances in horror, like maybe like a Linda Blair and The Exorcist type of
That's what I
energy.
was gonna say. That, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like that was the type of performance that like, oh my god, there's too much commitment here. Like Toni Collette like gave it her all, and the conversation at the table that they have, I think it's like in the middle of the film or towards the tail end when she freaks the fuck out. I
Oh,
man,
oh,
Ari Aster must have tapped into some trauma to get that performance because
that
she looked
literally
like
should
she was
have
about to
gotten
kill
her the
someone.
Oscar nomination. Like, what the fuck?
Well, and I think we all talked about it when we saw it. We're like, if she's nominated, that's the clip they're going to use. They're going to use the dinner scene.
100%.
So, but nowhere to be found. But anyways, yeah, like I said, is it something really deep? No, but like it's a really well done horror film that stuck with me throughout the entire year. It could have easily been a very mediocre haunted house possession type movie, but um, also even a little cult in there. Spoiler alert, but it's yeah, it's typical stuff we've seen before, but it's just so well done. How can you not put it on here? And for someone that has distributed a lot of horror films, this is definitely one of the top ones.
So, as I hinted at before, there were two A24 films that were my top two of 2018. This was my number two. Now, that being said, I think that Toni Collette gave my favorite performance of that whole year. Like that. Okay, so we've had this discussion, you, me, and Joel, for so long, like talking about how it's so annoying that these genre pieces don't get recognized by the Academy. I don't understand how, like, okay, you don't nominate the film, whatever. You don't nominate the script, whatever. But how do you not nominate the performance? I mean, this arguably was one of the best performances of that whole year. Literally everybody talked about that performance, including the people that didn't even like the fucking movie. So this performance obviously left an impact on everybody. So it's disappointing that this performance did not get recognized because it's just absurd in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, Hereditary, I think, is the best horror film that they've ever done, and they've done so many great horror films. Like, it's incredible how much fantastic horror that they've created. But this one was so different because it really wasn't focused on the scares. It was more focused on the drama that was going on with this family, which I really appreciate. And that's probably why a lot of people walked out of this movie so disappointed. They're like, I just wanted scares. It was too pretentious for me. Fuck off, honestly. Seriously, like, look, not every horror movie has to be about the scares that come to your face. There's a lot of horror movies that deal with eternal stuff too. And that's what this movie did beautifully. And I mean, yeah, what a hell of a debut. I mean, again, another film to where you think that this guy made so many films, but the acting. Alex Wolff, I mean, he shocked the fuck out of me. I was so impressed with him. And talk about a career for him. Like, he was so good in Pig. He was so good in that. I think
He was very good in
we
Pig.
we all
Yeah,
talked about that. And even though I wasn't crazy about Old, I thought he was good in that too. He's really established himself a lot as a very talented young actor. And the girl that played the daughter, doing that a lot. I mean, she did an incredible job too. And Gabriel Byrne as the father, he was great. And Ann Dowd, who I swear to God, every time she's in something, she always plays someone so weird. Like, she never plays anyone normal, and I'm starting to get really tired of it. I'm like, Ann Dowd, please play someone normal, and also please be in something happy, because the last time I saw her in something was in Mass, and that was the most depressing fucking movie ever. And
true. She always plays like a
like,
paranoid like mother or like aunt or something. She's always just paranoid about
I
something.
know,
That's
like
her character.
she's never sane. She's never sane at
But
all. And
nope.
it's like, Anne, play someone that's like, please, like, Jesus. Like, she kind of reminds me a lot of Margot Martindale, where Margot Martindale plays the happy peppy version of Andal. Then Andal's like the evil, like fucked up Margot Martindale of sorts. But yeah, I mean, Hereditary is incredible. That dinner table scene is one of the best acted scenes I think I've ever seen. And yeah, it's phenomenal stuff across the board. Um, Oh, I do want to mention like a really cool edit was like it showed an exterior of the house at night, then all of a sudden it was like a quick flash, and then it was daytime, and I'm like, wow, that's brilliant. That was incredible. Like everything about this movie is perfect in my opinion, and I'm so bummed that I didn't put it on my list. It was that was definitely the most difficult omission from the list for me because it was right there. It was number 6. It was right. It was like First Reformed or Hereditary, but I like First Reformed just a smidge more. So I'm glad we got to talk about it today. I'll be honest, the biggest shock of this episode would have been if none of us had it on our list. I would have been really surprised because you talked about it so much that year since, like you said, it was your favorite film that year. And you being the horror fan you are, I'm like, okay, this has to be on Chase's list. So I'm glad. I'm I'm happy that we got to talk about it. So my number 3, we're gonna go to the New York City, baby. We're gonna talk about Uncut Gems. Okay, so as a New Jerseyan, I love watching films that are set in this fucked up part of New York City. Like, if you're gonna have anyone make these fucked up, gritty New York dramas now in the 2010s, 2020s, these are the guys that are gonna do it. Scorsese did that in his prime, but now we have Josh and Benny Safdie doing it. Now, after I saw Good Time, I said to myself, I have to watch whatever these guys do next. Like, I'm immediately sold on whatever they do next. So when it was announced that they were doing this crime thriller set in the Diamond District of New York City and Adam Sandler was playing the lead, I'm like, yes, give it to me now. Because first of all, dramatic Sandler is amazing. He's so fucking good. And then to work with the directors of Good Time, I'm like, yep, this is going to be a banger. This is going to not disappoint me at all. And then I went to go see the movie and I'm like, oh my God, what if this actually disappoints me? And then I walked out of the movie and I remember I texted you guys right after I saw it and I was like, guys, they made another masterpiece. Adam Sandler's work as Howard Ratner, I mean, it's a phenomenal performance. Why didn't he get nominated? It honestly baffles me because he delivered truly jaw-droppingly incredible work here. You did not see Adam Sandler, you saw Howard Ratner. And I know for some people it caught them off guard because obviously the simple folk that go into this movie, they're just going to expect a comedy. And yeah, you get some of Sandler comedy there, like some of his quirk and charm and charisma, but he's never played a character like this before. He is so conniving. He is so cocky. He's so arrogant. He is so mischievous. You never know what direction he's going to go in. And it's a truly beautiful performance. The screenplay is fantastic. The dialogue is very frenetic and moves along. This is one of the most anxiety-inducing movies I have ever seen. The imagery is gorgeous, shot on 35 millimeter. It's very grainy and very polished and bright at the same time. And the score, dude, the fucking score. I'm telling you, like, I cannot believe that this score did not get recognized. I can't believe the editing didn't recognize. Truly, this film should have gotten something. It didn't get anything from the main outlets. All the critic organizations ate this movie up. But this movie was just beautiful character study. Loved following the character of Howard. Loved following him on his shenanigans. He just kept getting into shenanigans one after the other. You kept thinking, okay, it's now gonna calm down. Nope, it just gets insane again. Then the fucking weekend is there, which is weird. Kevin Garnett delivered an incredible performance for someone who's never acted before. Adina Menzel was great. Lakeith Stanfield continued to prove that he's one of the best actors working today. And then they introduced us to Julia Fox, who was phenomenal here. She was unbelievably good here. Her chemistry with Sandler was fantastic. And then the people that played the bodyguards of Howard's brother-in-law, Arno, they never acted before, and they were terrifying to watch on screen. And I mean, the whole movie left a very euphoric feeling on me. And yeah, not gonna lie, after I saw it, I wanted to cry because it was a lot to process, and I couldn't stop thinking about it after I saw it. And it made me realize that Joss and Benny Safdie are two of my favorite voices working in the industry today. And I love how Benny Safdie's also incorporated himself in other projects. Chase brought up earlier about how he incorporated himself in The Good Time and delivered a fantastic performance. But we've seen him pop up in so many different movies and TV shows. I mean, we just saw him on Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was just in my favorite film of last year, Licorice Pizza. And he's been doing so much, and I really love that about him. This film really left a tremendous impact on me. I love it so much. It's so, so good. And Sandler is incredible. I'm not a fucking athlete. This is my fucking way. This is how I win. And not gonna lie, I don't know if I ever heard anyone laugh more in a theater than when I heard the line, "Holy shit, I'm gonna come." I I can't see. My screen is glitching right now because it just knows how excited I am to talk about this. But yeah, seriously, guys, Uncut Gems is fantastic. It's really hard to say whether I like Good Time or Uncut Gems more. I think Good Time is the better film, but Uncut Gems is the more rewatchable one. Now, let me just say, if the Safdies decide to work with both Pattinson and Sandler again, uh, can you imagine how cool it would be if their next film had Sandler and Pattinson starring in it? I mean, I don't know what they would do. It would probably be a fucked up New York movie. And listen, if they want to keep making fucked up movies set in New York, let's keep having them do it. Yeah, Uncut Gems is phenomenal. So obviously, you brought up before that this is not on your list. You talked a little bit about your thoughts on Good Time. So where do you stand on Uncut Gems?
I love Uncut Gems. I remember that was a weird winter because I saw Frozen 2 the day before, and then Uncut Gems, the following day, which was a
Oh, a
great
nice
1-2
Idina
punch.
Menzel double feature.
Right, exactly. One for the family and then one for not your family. Yeah, no, it's a great example of anxiety filmmaking and how to do it correctly. It's not just the fast talking characters that you have. It's not the music that overlays this fast talking to like make it even more anxious. It's not the handheld camera that shakes to add the extra anxiety. It's no, it is a craft, and you have to build it on top of each other throughout the entire film. Like throughout the like at the very start of it, it's very kind of gentle, and then once we get into Howard's life, it's just go 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 go, and it never lets up. And even some of the smaller moments that they have are still exhilarating to watch. It's well edited, it's well shot, acted, directed, and written to really just kind of showcase a very flawed character who keeps messing up, but we are always are just like, well, Howard could be, he could be a good guy, but he keeps messing up. I want to keep rooting for him. But that's why you cast someone like Adam Sandler, because Adam Sandler is the type of actor and you look at and he starts talking, you're like, yeah, he seems like a pretty cool guy. And so even if he plays kind of a questionable character, his like Bryan said, charisma is what makes us like him, to where we're kind of on his side, even if he is kind of a d bag, especially in Uncut Gems. But yeah, and then of course like Julia Fox and like you said, The Weeknd and a bunch of other people just kind of pop up, and it's a movie that really feels kind of grounded and just it's in there in the thick of it with the city people and everything, and you just always feel like you're watching like a documentary or something on this person, not a fictional film. But yeah, it's really well done, and like you said, the score is really great too. Very, how to describe it? It's very synthy. It kind of feels like an '80s track, maybe something from like a Carpenter or a Cronenberg type of
Exactly.
film.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
so it kind of fucked up that way, but yeah, I love Uncut Gems, so it was a great pick.
Uncut Gems. I loved
Uh,
when that TikTok went around. I was like, why are people keep on saying Uncut Gems? And then I saw her saying, I'm like, oh, well, that's why. The great stuff. God, that movie is just so fucking seriously. That whole office sequence where he's talking with Kevin Garnett, like he's talking to Kevin Garnett, this high profile, this tall, like powerful basketball player. And then Kevin Garnett is even terrified of Howard. Like, who would have thought that Adam Sandler would play a character that is terrifies Kevin? It's seriously like Sandler really should have been nominated for Best Actor for this. It's ridiculous that he wasn't. Like And we talk about how Tony Collette's performance for Hereditary against snub was a huge deal. I think Sandler not getting nominated was a massive snub on the Academy's part. Like he didn't have to win, but a nomination would have been so deserving.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's also just one of those things where I don't think people take him seriously with his dramatic roles just because they're like, oh, it's the guy from Happy Gilmore, it's the guy from Grown Ups. It's like, guys, people can be in bad movies and still have a career doing other like who's the prime example? We just talked about him. Good old Robert Pattinson. Listen, I whatever you think of Twilight, that man made his bag, and then he was able to turn his whole career around, which Kristen Stewart did as well. And it's just like people can change. Like it's so I think them snubbing him out, like that was a clear indication that people don't take him seriously as a dramatic actor.
So unfortunate. I mean, like Punch Drunk Love, Reign Over Me, Funny People, Meyerowitz Stories, and then this. It's like he's just an incredible dramatic actor. Like it's
Hustle
and
was
then he's
solid.
doing and then he's doing a movie
Yeah.
with the guy who made Chernobyl. He's doing a space drama, and it's like
Great. Love it. I don't even know
like
what it's about. I just want to see it.
exactly like space drama from the guy who made Chernobyl, starring Adam Sandler. I'm sold. I cannot wait to see it. So now our top two. You had brought up that you're gonna put another messed up movie as your top two. I'm really curious to know what it is. I feel like I know what it is. I'm not gonna guess it, but I'll keep the guess to myself. Now the question is, am I gonna do another fucked up movie? We'll have to see. So Chase, what is your second favorite A24 film of all time?
Okay, so just bear with me here because you guys know how I talk at this point. So I'm going to start somewhere, but I will end up here. Just trust me. So jokingly earlier, I did bring up Twin Peaks: The Return, and it's only because I just saw a documentary um, on David Lynch about how he incorporates the Wizard of Oz in all of his films. Check it out; it was pretty solid. But I wanted to watch that documentary because I'm a huge David Lynch fan. I like his films. I like feeling surreal and really just kind of taken to another planet. I want to be transported. I want to think about the movie profusely after it's done. I want to not understand it and go understand some people's theories. I love movies like that. So, like, David Lynch to me is a great surrealist filmmaker. He will never tell you what his movies are about. And I kind of fucking love that. He just doesn't give a shit. He's like, listen, these are my movies, just deal with it. But it's nice to interpret them. I'm also a huge fan of Kubrick. And I feel like there is a sense of loss without him since 1999 after his last film, Eyes Wide Shut. So I have not seen something to the akin of like a David Lynch meets Stanley Kubrick combo until Under the Skin came out. And uh I have seen so many theory videos on that thing, and I understand it and I appreciate it more as you hear those videos. But like the first time I watched it, I was convinced that I was like I just saw Scarlett Johansson's best movie, like and for her entire career. Um, so there's so much to say about this film, but to start off with director Jonathan Glazer, he really utilizes atmosphere and tone and cinematography to really incorporate like this. It felt like 2001: A Space Odyssey. It felt like I was watching an episode of Twin Peaks where I was like, I don't know really what I'm looking at, but this is so visually interesting and arresting. And so I think what Glazer does really, really well is create that mood and atmosphere. He also does not spoon feed you throughout this entire movie. There's stuff that is interpreted. There's stuff that clearly is like you can see what's going on, but Jonathan Glazer never spoon feeds the audience. He's never like, oh, this is what this means. She's eating people to get human flesh for her spaceship. No, because that sounds dumb. But when it's filmed in an interesting way and it gives you the creeps, then it works better. And so, yes, it's a film about an alien that comes to Earth, blends in with us, wears human skin, and tries to navigate as a person. And so not only does he nail like the horror elements of it, the mystery, the utilization of like practical sets and like just creating stuff that really just is uncomfortable. On top of all that, it is probably the most human story off of A24's list. This is an alien who is cold, calculated, kills without any bated breath, and then slowly starts to like kind of be morphed into the human experience, feeling all types of emotions. And the final shot in the fucking woods,
Oh,
when I'm gonna go ahead and just spoil it. The movie's almost 10 years old now. Listen, when Scarlett Johansson's character is about fed up with humanity, because the humanity was a piece of shit in this movie. They just were. Every single person took advantage of her. When she thought she was like the alpha male, like I'm the alien, I'm gonna come eat you. No, she got her fucking soul crushed. And there's a shot at the end where she takes the human skin off and she just cries. This is an alien who was a cold killer, who literally was just on Earth to get meat and then be gone. There's a lot more stuff, visual imagery with it, but that's the basic gist. But she realizes humanity is just awful. And she breaks down as her symbiote self. Like, we can't see her like cry. She doesn't really have eyes. It's just, but you can feel it because she has grown to become a person and she realizes that this isn't worth it because humanity is garbage. And that was soul crushing to her, someone who has lived on Earth for like 2 weeks in the span of this movie. So yeah, and like I said, it looks really great. The score it kind of reminds me of like Uncut Gems, where it's kind of unconventional, but just kind of it kind of throws you off your uh calibration when you're watching it. But Scarlett Johansson doesn't really say much. She has maybe a total of like 8 sentences for the entire film. It's all a physical performance. So that's why the end of the film, when she breaks down, she starts crying. That's very effective to me because the whole time Scarlett Johansson has kind of like this. She's on a mission. She's got that type of face, but as she starts to like kind of become more human, she starts to loosen up her face and like it becomes a little bit more flexible with smiles and frowns and all that stuff. And so that's why the ending of the film is so great. And then it's got some really interesting imagery to where I think if you have never seen this film, it is like a great combination of Stanley Kubrick and David Lynch. And if you can handle that type of stuff, it's one of the better, I guess, alien invasion movies that I've seen in my 32 years on this earth. So Under the Skin is my number 2. My last fucked up one. Now you guys know what my number 1 is. But anyways, Bryan, I know Under the Skin is not on your list. So
another fucking masterpiece of horror in A24's catalog. I remember when I first saw this movie and like I wanted to see it just because I love Scarlett Johansson, and I mean, who doesn't? And I didn't watch any trailer. I saw the poster and I was sold. I was sold just on that poster. I went to go see the movie and I was absolutely riveted by it. And then I watched it again, like maybe like 3 or 4 years later. And I said to myself, that is one of the best. That might be one of the best movies of the entire decade so far. And it ended up being in my top, I think, 20 films of the 2010s. It was so high for me. This is the kind of science fiction that I like and the kind of horror that I like because I'm a huge sci-fi guy. I love science fiction movies, but I also love whenever it combines with other genres, like a sci-fi comedy or a sci-fi thriller, or in this case, a sci-fi horror movie. The concept is great and it's executed beautifully. And it's kind of disappointing that Jonathan Glazer hasn't made another film since. I know that he was working on another film for a while, and I don't know if he even shot it. I have no idea, but this made me become a fan of him. And then I went through his catalog, and he had never really directed a lot of films prior to this. He was more known for directing short films and commercials and music videos, particularly one of my all-time favorite music videos, the music video for Karma Police, the Radiohead song, a truly phenomenal music video. Like it's incredible. Like his style is so unique that I would love to see more work from him. And Scarlett Johansson's performance, I think it's the best acting she's ever done. Yes, over Marriage Story, even. I mean, Marriage Story, her performance in that is incredible, but like Chase was talking about, how she doesn't say a lot. It's more of a physical performance. And sometimes when you deliver an entirely physical performance as opposed to just talking jibber jabber, that could be incredible if utilized well. And she brings her A game. She is incredible. The visual effects here are amazing. There's a lot of practical effects. It's a very grand film, but it's a lot smaller than one would expect. And
I got to tell people, like, if I'm just going to say, if you want to watch this and you want to take a stab at it, the first 5 minutes or so are going to test your patience, because it's literally like the same shot. It's the same shot that goes on for too long. And at first, when I saw it, I was like, oh no, this is going to be one of those films. But as it kept going, I was like, okay, I get it now. But the first opening shot is going to test your patience, because it takes a while to get going.
Yeah. And also a really cool fact about this movie is that a lot of the actors, aside from Scarlett, were just regular people, and they were plucked out of the street, and they were filmed with hidden cameras. They didn't know they were filming a movie with Scarlett Johansson. They had no idea what they were getting themselves into, and that's amazing in my opinion. And yeah, the score, oh my God, Mika Levy's music is phenomenal. So when it was announced that 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 they were doing the score for Jackie, I was like, yes. And then they incorporated that same style that they had for Under the Skin, and it was still fucking weird, and it was great. It was. I'm so happy that Pablo Loren was like, hey, Mika, score my movie about Jackie Kennedy that really isn't a biopic about Jackie Kennedy. So, and it delivered, and that was nominated for best score, and it should have fucking won best score. But I mean, when you're competing against a movie musical, you're unfortunately not going to win. And that's okay, because La La Land is a great fucking movie. So it really doesn't matter. But Under the Skin is phenomenal. Scarlett Johansson's best acting, one of the best A24 films, the kind of sci-fi that I wish we get more of. And yeah, I mean, I ate this shit up when it came out, and I talk about this movie. I was just talking about this movie very recently with one of my coworkers, because one of my coworkers is also obsessed with like fucked up sci-fi horror. And I said, have you watched Under the Skin? And he said no. And I said, dude, you gotta fucking watch it. It's so fucking good. But I'm so glad we got to talk about this one too, because oh my God, it's so good. So steering away from the fucked up horrorness, we're gonna go into something very fluffy and feel good. We're gonna talk about Lady Bird, which is my number 2. I'm a sucker for coming of age films. That's my personal favorite genre of all time. I think Chase knows this. I will go nuts when a coming of age film comes out. I will like literally like gag from my mouth because of how much excitement I have for a coming of age film. And I will tell you though, my hype for this movie was incredibly low, because there was a point in my life where I did not like Greta Gerwig at all. I don't know what was wrong with me. I have no idea. I was a very naive young lad back in the day that I didn't understand the hype for Greta Gerwig. I had watched Frances Ha, and I'm like, really? This movie's fine, but like everyone needs to just shut up about her. And then they said, oh, she's directing this. So I'm like, oh, but then it's going to be quirky in a way that I don't like. Okay, she's not in it, but how am I going to feel about this movie? No, it's one of the best coming of age films I've ever seen in my life. There's not much of a story to this movie, which could definitely throw people off and make people a little annoyed that nothing really happens in this movie. You're just following this girl through her senior year of high school. And I have to tell you that it's a pretty riveting coming of age story. It's really fucking funny. It's so funny. There's so many great moments of comedic timing throughout the movie. I mean, for goodness sakes, the first scene, she's in the car and she jumps out the car while it's moving. That's comedy gold. Let's be real though. Steve Carell did it first in Crazy Stupid Love. So for anyone that says Saoirse Ronan did it first in Lady Bird, they're wrong. Steve Carell did the jump out of a moving car first, but I digress. I no one though is as big of a fan of this movie, I think, is our friend Joel. Like he wouldn't you remember how he wouldn't shut up about this movie when it came out, and rightfully so. It's a great fucking movie, but Saoirse Ronan is amazing in this. She's so good. She's one of the best young performers we have today. I thought Laurie Metcalf was incredible. I had never seen her really in a film because I grew up watching reruns of Roseanne on TV, and then obviously she's Andy's mom in Toy Story, and she's done a lot of TV work, but she was never really doing a lot of film. Now, granted, at the time, I had not seen. Was she in Scream 2 or 3? Which Scream was she in?
Uh, I just watched those recently too. I forgot.
I think she was in the second one because she was related to somebody, right? She was related to
I
somebody. I don't remember. Oh my god. But it's crazy because it's like you watch her in Lady Bird, and yeah, you may not necessarily condone how she's treating her daughter, but then you realize Lady Bird is kind of a bitch. She's a bitch, but you get where she's coming from in some circumstances, and it's a mother-daughter story. And when I watched the movie, I kind of pictured some aspects of my mom and my sister in this movie. Like I could just picture some of the conversations that they had, and it's a beautiful thing. And I'm telling you, if you don't feel any emotion in that last sequence with Laurie Metcalf when she drops off Lady Bird at the airport that she drives away and she realizes she's got to turn around to say goodbye to her daughter as she's going away to college. I mean, fuck. Like that, it just stays on her the whole time for like 2 minutes. And it's incredible acting. And how she didn't win the Oscar for this, I don't. I really liked Allison Janney and I, Tonya. I wasn't too crazy about that movie, but I liked her performance a lot to where I'm like, she was deserving. But Laurie Metcalf, I thought, was really on a whole other level in Lady Bird. And the ensemble here is great. Tracy Letts as the dad was really great. Mr. Larry McPherson. I mean, I would love for that guy to be my dad and just talk to me about motivational stuff. And then you have Lucas Hedges. You have Timothy Chalamet. You have Beanie Feldstein. I'm sorry, the whole titular role scene, the Tempest thing, that's one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, I mean, God, this movie's so good. It's so good. The needle drops are great. It feels like I'm watching a film set in the early 2000s. I love the vibe. It feels like a cozy film too. And the ending to me is pretty perfect. When she calls her mom and talks about, do you remember the first time you drove in Sacramento? It's a really great coming of age film. It obviously doesn't really do anything new to the genre, but it's just one of those films to where they do it right. You have the great writing, you have the great characters, you have the great directing. And I was shocked when Greta got nominated for Best Director for this. I really didn't think that she was going to slide into the top 5, but I was talking with someone recently about this. I think that Best Director lineup was really great and very diverse too. You had her, you had Christopher Nolan, you had Jordan Peele, you had Guillermo del Toro, and then you had Paul Thomas Anderson. All completely different films from one another, different genres, different tones, different styles. You had a war film, a coming of age film, a horror film, a romance film, and then you had a period drama. It's incredible. It's incredible. But yeah, I love Lady Bird so much. Obviously, it's not on your list. So tell us your thoughts on Lady Bird.
Yeah, I like Lady Bird. Like you said, it's a great coming of age film. I liked it just fine that year. I think it was my number 9, so it squeaked in there. But yeah, I wasn't like over the moon about it like you and Joel. But I appreciated like Greta Gerwig and how she approaches like story and humor, drama, and just makes a really great just human story. And like you said, it doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl. Like everyone has had to leave home at some point, and it's not easy on the parents. It's not easy on you, and you rebel and you get angry at each other. You break down. Like I get it, and so it's a very relatable film for sure. And I think anyone can have something that they can find in themselves in this character.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, talk about Greta Gerwig as a filmmaker. I mean, I thought Little Women was great. And I mean, listen, I'm calling it right now. Barbie's going to be a great movie. That movie's not going to be for kids. I feel like you, me, and Joel, when that movie comes out, we're going to be talking about it. And I would be I wouldn't be shocked at all if a parent takes their young daughter to go see Barbie And then there's a shot where she gets slapped on the ass, like you saw in that that behind the scenes video, and then they just walked out. This wasn't what I signed up for.
You talking about that the one couple that brought their 8-year-old to Team America,
Oh
and I
my
had to
god.
I had to witness that. Of course, I took my mom to see it, and I was 14. Sorry, mom, I still feel guilty about that to this day. But at least I was 14. This little girl who was 8, and I think she was crying. The parents were crying because they thought it was like some type of like Muppet thing. I'm just like Trey Parker and Matt Stone just they got a whole family. They trolled a whole family. It was
Oh
great.
my god, that's so great. That's so great. So now it's time to talk about our number ones.
All right.
So
So,
Chase, why is Moonlight your favorite A24 film of all time? Let's hear the story. Build
all
up
right.
to it.
All right. I'm the master at that. So, first things first, before the slap, this was the latest fiasco at the Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the best moment ever because Bryan, were you and I on a call or like we texted or Joel might have been a part of that too. It might have been the
I
group chat
yeah,
because
I remember this really well. So I was a freshman in college when this happened. I was at an Oscar party, but I was texting you throughout the night about the Oscars. And I
so
thought the show was over
right.
when
So
they
here
said
here
La La Land won,
here
and then the
here's what happened.
fiasco happened.
Yeah, was it me that reminded you to keep watching, or was it you reminding me?
I think it was you reminding me to keep
Because
watching.
because one of us was like, "Man, that was unfortunate. We thought Moonlight was going to get it," and then someone said something to each other, and then
I think it was you. I think it was you.
and
You
so I
might
was
have
like,
been a few minutes ahead. My showing might have been a few minutes behind, so or a few seconds
I
behind. So
I just knew something wasn't right because as the speeches were wrapping up for the La La Land producers, which has got to be embarrassing, by the way,
oh my
when they
god.
were wrapping up their thing and the show was about to end, I just saw someone dart from the left side of the stage, and they're like, "No, no, 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 we got it all wrong," and people thought they were joking, and like I remember the reaction, like that was so great. So, anyways, before the slap kids, that was the latest fiasco at the Oscars. Okay, all these films on my list that I love, like I've had a gut feeling that like, oh wow, this is gonna stick with me for a long time. Um, all that stuff. Moonlight was the first one, and I saw this with Joel, by the way. And this is actually the first time we've done this together. This might never happen again because Joel and I have different tastes, some blend in, yada yada yada. We saw it together. And the movie was done. We turned to each other. I swear to God, we said the same thing. We're like, we just saw the best movie of the year. And like I think he was like, yeah, we just saw like the best movie of the year, and we knew it from that point. Nothing was going to beat it, and nothing did. And so I think that was the first A24 film. It still has nothing has changed that. Maybe Everything Everywhere All at Once is like the newest one that kind of feels like that a little bit, but Moonlight was the first one. Was like, this is not only my favorite of the year. This is going to be one of my favorite romances of all time. Just like with Ladybird, I am not a girl. And just like with Moonlight, and I said this in my review back then, I'll say it now. I am not gay. I am not black. But what's great about Moonlight is that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what your sexuality is, everyone can relate to this film. Everyone can relate to Chiron trying to find himself, trying to figure out his sexuality, coming of age, growing up, being thrown into this, situation where he's got to combat his home life and his school life, and like people are treating him like garbage. People in his life and his family are garbage, and so he really is climbing up this uphill battle just to survive day to day abuse from people, but also to not be shy about who he wants to love, because there, unfortunately, in this country, there's a stigma on homosexuality. I don't know why. I think it's a beautiful thing. Like people just need to grow up. But with this one, it's like he was trying so hard to like bottle that in because he knows that he's going to be judged, especially as a black man that already has to face the hurdles that he has to face. Now you're going to add being gay on top of that, and so he understands that. That's why he gets bullied at school, and just at some point he just gives up and he fights back, and you know in his teenage years, because it's told in three different segments. When he was a kid, he's got some really bad. His mom at home was really really bad to him, but then of course Mahershala Ali kind of like guides him through, and then his teenagers are really brutal. He really hides in who he is, and then this is why the third act is so it's just magical. He eventually falls in love with a gentleman. I forgot what his name is in the movie, but he's played by Trevante Rhodes, who is now playing Mike Tyson on the Hulu series. So there you go. Yeah, the diner scene at the very end with um, the two adults just having a genuine conversation about life and love and regrets and fears and what they want as two gay black gentlemen in the United States. They just talked about everything, and it's just a really beautiful moment because you can definitely see this love like just blooming and forming, and you're like, this is just so wholesome. How can you hate this? It's just like these two men love each other. Let
Literally.
them fucking do it. And so, yeah, it's a really beautiful ending to that film. The hero's journey of growing up, coming out of like just the bad things that have happened in your life, and to become this very like studious person. Like he got an education, he bettered himself, and like he took Mahershala Ali's like advice, and he went somewhere with his life, and it's just really really great life lessons. And then of course, just like with The Last Black Man in San Francisco, I was introduced to Jonathan Majors. Listen, I know that Mahershala Ali had been acting before that, but my dumbass didn't recognize it until Moonlight, and I was like, this man's on my radar for life. And he's now a two-time Academy Award winner, ladies and gentlemen, in 4 years, by the way. 4 years. So anyways, like he really was the embodiment of like a father figure, or just a mentor, a guide for a young mind. Like it was just such a great, humble, and just very just beautiful performance from him. In my opinion, like I'm excited to see his future grow throughout the years, and he's going to win a third Oscar, ladies and gentlemen. But the Moonlight character, it's something special. I don't think he's ever going to recreate that magic for me, and I'm going to continue to love him throughout his entire career. But yeah, it doesn't matter if you're straight, you're gay, you're white, or you're black. I think the beautiful thing about this film is it's universal to everyone, and so I I can empathize with this character, even though, like I said, I'm not gay nor I'm black. Like I can empathize with characters, and that's what makes film so powerful. It's like you might not be watching yourself in these people, but you can understand it from a human perspective, and you can empathize with them, and that makes the journey just more powerful, in my opinion. So that's why Moonlight affected me so much. It's just everything about, and of course Barry Jenkins with his direction, just this movie's told in three parts, and like each part has its own unique style, like you said, Bryan. Like color palette, like there's really nice blues and oranges in the first third. I remember in like the third act, it's more of like golds and kind of like street light kind of ambiance, and then in the middle it's gritty, it's grimy, it's dirty because he's going through like the roughest parts of his life. It's just perfection. Like I don't know what else more to say. It is something that stuck with me. It's one of my favorite movie theater experiences because I could not believe it. After years, I was hit in the gut with this is a masterpiece. I don't like using the M word loosely, but that one deserved it. So it is perfecto, chef's kiss. Whatever you want, you got it. That's what Moonlight is.
No notes. No, literally no notes. Like truly one of the best films ever. Like, oh my god.
And you know what? I cannot believe it won the Oscar, because I knew deep down, like
either.
I was like, this is a film I love. I'm gonna cherish. Just give me my number one. Yeah, I can celebrate. But I didn't think in a million years it was gonna win, because like Bryan said, it was this small little film that no one knew nothing about, and A24 picked it up, and they wrote it home all the way to a Best Picture win. It's crazy.
It's incredible that It's always an incredible feeling when your favorite film of the year walks away with the award for Best Picture. When you really think deep down, you're like, oh, this being my favorite film of the year, there's no way the Academy is going to recognize it as their favorite of the year. Like the feeling that you had when Moonlight won Best Picture was similar to my feeling of when Parasite won Best Picture, because like I kept thinking to myself, like, there's no way the Academy is going to give it to something like this.
Hey,
And
I
then
mean,
they did.
Parasite was my number one of that year too. So like, I couldn't believe
But
it happened twice in my lifetime. Usually,
like
my
it,
number one is never on the radar of the Academy.
same. It's insane. It's crazy. And I mean, yeah. And can we also just the last thing we'll talk about Moonlight before we go into my number one? How fucking badass was it when Chiron walked into the classroom and just hit that guy with the chair? That honestly was one of the most badass moments I've ever seen in my life. And I remember it was just me in the theater when I went to go see it, because I went on a Monday afternoon where there was no one in the theater. And I remember just screaming, fuck yes, so loud. I was like, yes, you fucking go, Chiron. You fucking go. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
those kids were mean to him. I was
Oh my
just like,
God.
dude, he
They
does not
absolutely
des-
deserved it.
he does not deserve all this hate. What are you doing? And I'm like, you know what? At this point, kick his ass, man.
Yeah, seriously, go all in. Fuck him up. Let's go. And now my number one. As I said, I'm a massive coming of age fan. There's something about coming of age films that really resonate with me a lot more than any other genre. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think I just like following characters that like I can relate to in some capacity, whether it's socially awkward or figuring out what their purpose is, or maybe not having a lot of friends or really struggling to just make it out there. And I remember I didn't see this when it came out. I watched it a little while after it had come out. I was a fan of the female lead of the movie, but I had never really seen anything with the male lead of this movie. I had never heard the director. I remember seeing the trailer and being blown away. Everybody was praising this film out of Sundance, which is where it premiered. No film from A24 has left a bigger impact on me than The Spectacular Now. We've seen coming of age films pretty much following this exact same formula numerous times. But what really stood out to me about this film was just how it didn't entirely feel cliche. It was very sensitive and showing its characters and how flawed they are and how deep down they're both really lonely. I mean, Miles Teller's character is very out there. He's very outgoing, but he has no idea what he wants to do in his life. And he's also an alcoholic. Shailene Woodley is the sweetest, kindest person ever. She loves anime. She loves art. She loves all these quirky stuff. She doesn't wear any makeup. She's not exactly the most popular girl. They start this friendship, which forms into a relationship, and you see the struggles there because they're both, broken in a certain way, especially Miles Teller's character, Sutter. I remember watching this movie for the first time, and there's that whole sequence in the car, and everyone knows what scene I'm talking about. And he's like, "You don't love me. You don't love me. I cannot be loved." Like, for him to say that, it honestly broke my heart, because even though he was a flawed character, he was not a bad person at all. And he didn't want to see himself become that bad person. He was worried that he was going to do that to Amy. And he started feeling so lost with himself. And I feel like this is something a lot of people can relate to, especially when they're in the period going from high school to college. Because when you graduate high school, I mean, there's so many possibilities of where you could go. You don't have to go to college. You can figure out what you want to do. And that's the great thing about when you get to that point, even though some people may not think it's okay that you're not sure what you want to do. That's just a common thing of life. And you know what happens too when people graduate college? They don't know what they're going to do. They don't know if they're going to continue their education. They don't know if they're going to go into a job. They don't know if they're just going to take a break before trying to find work. Like, the possibilities are endless. And these characters are so beautifully written, and the performances by these two are so fucking good. Miles Teller is phenomenal here. Um, this was the first time he had led a film because, oh my god, my AirPod's falling out because I'm about to cry. Um, he was in a bunch of really shitty comedies for a long time, and then he did this film, and it floored everybody. And Shailene Woodley was already a pretty established name for, being on this teen drama, The Secret Life of the American Teenager, and she had done incredible work in The Descendants, which is one of my all-time favorite films. Their chemistry was beautiful. It felt genuine. It felt earned. It felt honest. It didn't feel fake. And the thing is, when you have a romance, you need to buy the chemistry. And you felt like these two were not only friends, but they genuinely loved each other. And I love the arcs of both of them. And the cast surrounding them is pretty great too. You have Brie Larson in one of her earlier roles as Miles Teller's now ex-girlfriend. She was great. You have Jennifer Jason Leigh playing Miles Teller's mom, who's just such a delightful mom. Like, she's great. And you have Kyle Chandler as his dad. And Sutter is worried that he could end up being his father. He's so worried that he's going to follow into his father's footsteps. And he tries so hard not to, but he struggles with that. And it's a truly beautiful character arc. And oh my god, just seriously, this film is just so, it's just so beautiful to me. And I was reading a review that Roger Ebert wrote. It was one of his last reviews ever. And I love what he wrote about this. Like, it pretty much symbolizes how I feel about the movie. So I'm just going to read this. Here is a lovely film about two high school seniors who look, speak, and feel like real 18-year-old middle American human beings. Do you have any idea how rare that is? They aren't crippled by irony. They aren't speeded up into cartoons. Their sex lives aren't insulted by scenes that treat them cheaply. What an affected film this is. It respects its characters and doesn't use them for its own shabby purposes. How deeply we care about them. Miles Teller and Shailene Woodley are so there. Being young is a solemn business when you really care about someone. Teller has a touch of John Cusack in his say anything period. Woodley is beautiful in a real person sort of way, studying him with concern and then that warm smile. We have gone through senior year with these two. We have known them. We have been them. And that last line is 100% true. We have known people like these characters. And in some cases, we have been just like them. It's a way of life. Everyone goes through this when they're getting to the point of high schoolers. And he's right. I mean, when you watch a film about high schoolers, these feel like you're watching actual high schoolers. And even though these guys were in their 20s when they made the movie, I didn't even think about the fact they were in their 20s because I felt like I was watching actual 18-year-olds act. And it's one of the best coming of age films I have ever seen. It's a truly beautiful film. I wish that James Ponsoldt could make another great film like this because he made The End of the Tour right after this, which is another fantastic film from A24. And since then, unfortunately, he hasn't really hit. The Circle, I thought, was awful. And then he made a film this year called Summer Rain, which I saw at Sundance, which was also terrible. So I'm really hoping he bounces back soon because this film and The End of the Tour, but also his previous film Smashed with Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Aaron Paul is also great. So he's able to do films where you tackle these very broken characters, but you're interested in following their journeys. And that's the case with this movie. The acting, the writing, the directing, everything is phenomenal. The guys who wrote this film actually wrote one of the best romance films that I've ever seen. And I think it's also a film that Chase loves, 500 Days of Summer. And they also wrote The Fault in Our Stars, which I love. And then they also wrote a film that Chase brought up earlier in his album mentions, The Disaster Artist. These guys are great writers, and I hope that they continue to write. This film really is incredible. It's the A24 film that has stuck with me the most. As a coming-of-age film fan, and just as a film fan in general, I don't think they've made a film that has hit me more than this one. And I'm shocked because there are so many times where I'm like, okay, I think this one's going to be the number one. I think that one's going to be the number one. Nope. The Spectacular Now has remained my favorite A24 film for almost 10 years. It's absolutely crazy. It's a truly beautiful film. I've recommended it to so many people, all of whom have loved it. The acting, the writing, the directing, everything across the board is phenomenal. This is a beautiful film. I love it so, so much. And yeah, it's my favorite A24 film of all time.
Yeah, it's that was my first ever press screening. Like that's because I started getting into that like March of 2013, and this came out like April or May or something like that. That was a great year because that was also the same year as they were on the scene with like Spring Breakers. Then like Enemy was like in December, and then like Under the Skin, like their initial run, a lot of people forget about because they tend to think of it like Ex Machina or Room or The Witch. It's like that was 2015, 2016. They've been around for quite a bit, and The Spectacular Now is one of those films. And so I love that film as well. As my favorite film of 2013. That was a weird year because that was number one and Wolf of Wall Street was two, so two completely different films. But yeah, Spectacular Now, man, that's a great pick.
Yeah, I mean, oh God, every time I think about it, it just makes me want to cry. It's a beautiful film, and I just love it so much. So now we're gonna give a shout out to some of the other films that didn't make the list. So before we do that, let's recap our list. So Chase, what is your list from 5 to 1?
All right, 5 to 1, we have Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, Hereditary, Under the Skin, and Moonlight.
And to recap my list, coming in at number 5 is First Reformed. Number 4 is Moonlight. Number 3, Uncut Gems. Number 2, Lady Bird. And number 1, The Spectacular Now. So now let's go through this plethora of honorable mentions. I mean, Chase, where do we even begin? So what do you have in your honorable mentions list?
I mean, Enemy, I mentioned it earlier. A very underrated Denis Villeneuve film. Check it out. It was right after Prisoners and right before Arrival. Ex Machina, which is not my favorite Garland movie that still goes to Annihilation, but still a great one. Room, Into the Tour, The Witch, Green Room, the Nazi killing one with Patrick Stewart, which is also a great one. Anton Yelchin, one of his final films.
Oh my God.
The Lobster, no one ever really talks about that anymore. That one's right up my alley. A Ghost Story, very good. Florida Project, Killing of a Sacred Deer, Eighth Grade, great. The Death of Dick Long, great dark comedy. Waves, Val, and two of my favorite. Well, actually, I think all four of them are going to go down as some of my favorites. I'm going to give it more time. But last year, in 2021, we had The Green Knight, Come On,
Yes.
Come On,
Yes.
Red Rocket,
Yes.
and The Tragedy of Macbeth.
Yes.
In the same year. 2021 was a great A24 year. So plus Val, like that's what I'm saying.
Oh
Like
my God, yes.
last year was amazing for them. So like, yeah, those are. But that's another question I'll ask you when you go down your list. What is a recent favorite? I'm talking like 2 years to now. For me, I think a new kind of underrated classic that they are going to have in the future with audiences is either The Green Knight or Come On, Come On. I think those two are going to finally find their audience because they both deserve praise, but no one talks about either one of those movies.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So here we go. Enemy, Under the Skin, Locke. I fucking love Locke. Tom Hardy, phenomenal performance. You know what? I'm gonna give a shout out to Tusk. I think it's kind of cool that Kevin Smith made a film for A24. Not my favorite film, but I want to give the man a shout out. I fell in New Jersey, and I gotta support the man. Um, while we're young, Noah Baumbach, fantastic film. Ben Stiller, Naomi Watts, Adam Driver, Amanda Seyfried, just oh my god, incredible. Ex Machina is amazing. That's the kind of sci-fi that I love. Amy, fantastic documentary. Like you, I wasn't too well rounded with Amy Winehouse. And I remember seeing that and I was absolutely floored. And I'm so happy that I walked away with the Oscar for Best Documentary. One of the best documentaries I've personally ever seen. The End of the Tour is amazing. Room is fucking phenomenal. Brie Larson's performance just truly game changing. And Jacob Tremblay gave one of the best child performances, honestly, of all time, in my opinion. The Witch is amazing. Green Room is fantastic. Swiss Army Man, Oh my God. As a massive Harry Potter fan, it was so exciting to see Daniel Radcliffe do something like this. And he really showed his chops here. And obviously, everybody loves Paul Dano too. So I want to give that a shout out. Um, yeah, 20th Century Women, not the only Mike Mills film that we'll be talking about in this honorable mentions. Um, yeah, Ghost Story, one of the most beautiful looking films that they've ever done. David Lowery is one of the best voices that we have. Like everything he's made is great. I'm so excited for his Peter Pan adaptation. I cannot wait to see that. Obviously, Good Time. Robert Pattinson, one of the best performances of the past few years. Florida Project is great. Killing the Sacred Deer is great. Disaster Artist is great. Um, Hereditary, of course, brought that up. Eighth Grade. I want to talk about that for a second. I guarantee you that if that had a much better campaign, I think that film would have walked away with the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. I think that had a really good chance of winning. It won a bunch of screenplay awards at like smaller organizations. I think it won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Original Screenplay and the WGA for Best Original Screenplay. And that's a fantastic debut. Bo Burnham's one of the best voices that we have today. I mean, if you haven't watched Eighth Grade or Inside, I mean, if you guys have not watched Inside at this point, you're absolutely doing yourself a disservice. You just have to check that out. Let's see what else there is. Mid 90s, another fantastic directorial debut. Jonah Hill. Um, Climax couldn't get into that, unfortunately. The Souvenir, Midsummer, The Farewell, The Lighthouse, of course. Waves isn't amazing. Minari, another fantastic one. Vow, like you brought up. Green Knight, yes. Souvenir Part 2, one of the best sequels I think I've ever seen. As someone who went to film school, it really hit me. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I think you might have to check it out, honestly. You being someone who went to film school as well, I think it's going to hit you really hard. You definitely should give that a watch.
Yeah, I still need to watch part one.
Part 1 is good, but part 2, even better, way better. You don't even honestly, there are people that I know that didn't even like part 1 that loved part 2. So it's one of those kinds of films. Come on, come on. I thought was great. I thought The Humans was great. Red Rocket was great. Tragedy Macbeth, of course, was great. I loved After Yang. That's a film that came out earlier this year. X was great. Obviously, Everything Everywhere. We talked about that. Marcel the Shell with Suzanne is one of my favorite films of the year. And Bodies, 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 I thought was such a fun time. I had such a great time with that one. To
And Pearl
answer
just
your
came out last weekend.
and
It's
Pearl just
crazy.
came out last week, and I really enjoy. I wasn't as wowed by that as I was with X, but I still really like. And Mia Goth's acting, and we talked about this a while ago. Mia Goth's acting. If I was in charge of the Academy, I would 100% nominate her for Best Actress. 100% nominate her for Best Actress. To answer your question about a favorite of mine in the past 2 years, I'm gonna say Come On, Come On. I'm gonna say that's the one that stuck with me the most. That has stuck with me the most in the past 2 years. And now obviously last year, I mean, I loved Macbeth. I loved Red Rocket. Souvenir Part 2, like I said. Green Knight, it was amazing. But really, I don't think any of them have stuck with me more than Come On, Come On, because I mean, when you watch a film about a child grieving, it could be really difficult to like appreciate, especially if the child actor isn't good. But Woody Norman, phenomenal child performance. And to act on the same level as someone as talented as Joaquin, I mean, come on. He did an incredible job. And that's probably the nicest character Joaquin's ever played. And, you know, to go from Joker to this, I think was the perfect thing for him to do in his career. Yeah, Come On, Come On should have been nominated for script. And it should have gotten way more nominations, but screenplay especially, it should have been in for its screenplay. Like that's a beautiful film. It was in my top 10 of last year. Yeah, dude, that movie fucked me up, and I fucking love it. It's so fucking good. It's so good. Oh man. But now let's talk about the films they have coming out. Okay, I'm not gonna go through everything, but I want to save a particular special one for last because I know me and Chase are going to gush about it for a little while. So I'll talk about some films that really have my interest. Now, some of these films, if you guys are following me on Twitter and Letterboxd, I'm going to be attending the New York Film Festival. Some of these films, actually, a lot of these films, I'm going to be seeing at the festival, including Stars at Noon, which is the new Claire Denis film, After Sun, which is a film starring Paul Mescal, which is receiving a very high amount of acclaim. Um, we have The Inspection, which is about a soldier who is a closeted soldier, and he's going through a whole hazing thing, and it sounds great. I'm very excited to see that. Causeway, which is a film starring Jennifer Lawrence about another soldier going through PTSD. It sounds great. I'm not seeing that at the festival, unfortunately. We have The Eternal Daughter, which is Joanna Hawke's follow-up to The Souvenir. Very excited about that. It stars Tilda Swinton. Showing Up, which is a film from Kelly Reichardt, starring Michelle Williams and Han Chow. When he finished Saving the World, the directorial debut of Jesse Eisenberg, which I actually already saw. I saw it at Sundance. I wasn't too wowed by it, but I think for a directorial debut, it was a competent directorial debut, and I'm curious to see if Jesse Eisenberg directs more. Some other films coming out. Disappointments Boulevard, Ari Aster. I mean, we're very excited about that. Civil War, which is Alex Garland's next movie, hopefully is much better than Men, because I'll be upfront, Men really disappointed me. I don't know how Chase felt about it, but I was very disappointed with it. Ty West has another film coming out that's kind of related to the Pearl storyline. You heard about it, whether you like it or not. Steve McQueen has a film coming out from A24 called Occupied City, which they just announced recently. There's a Steve Martin documentary coming out from Morgan Neville, the guy who made the fantastic Mr. Rogers documentary. We have Jonathan Glazer's new film, which is supposedly still coming out, called Zone of Interest. Um, there's a lot of stuff coming out that sounds really, really good. I know that Zac Efron just signed up for an A24 film as well. I can't tell you what it is, but okay. Let's talk about the one that we're clearly most excited about. What film is that, Chase? What's the A24 film that's coming out that we can't stop expressing our anticipation for?
It's The Whale.
It's The Whale.
The motherfucking Whale.
The motherfucking Whale.
You know, I know people are kind of iffy on Darren Aronofsky. I'm not going to disagree with you. Even some of his own films that I love, like, you know, it is what it is. But for the most part, I like him as a director. I've seen, I think, all of them. You know, Pi, Requiem for a Dream, The Fountain, The Wrestler, Mother, which was a great theater experience, by the way. Regardless of what you think of that movie, people were losing their effing minds. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, The Whale is not only is it a great milestone for Aronofsky, creating more of a grounded drama like he did with The Wrestler, it's also really great for Brendan Fraser, who quite honestly has had a pretty shitty last 20 years or so. You know, we're not going to get into the specifics here, but that man was abused and he was just stripped away emotionally. And so stepped away from the acting, and now he's kind of popping up in things like Doom Patrol, and he's got a Scorsese role lined up, and he's got this.
He was just in Soderbergh's new movie.
He's in Soderbergh's new movie. He was supposed to be in Batgirl, and so he had roles lined up, and people were willing to work with him in his kind of Renaissance, Renaissance, if you will. But yeah, The Whale is also going to be a really great test for him to kind of come back into the limelight and show us a completely different side of him. You know, this is a story about an obese man, 600 pounds or whatever, that has lost his relationship with his daughter just over the years, and he tries to regain that back. And his daughter's played by Sadie Sink, or wait, is that?
Yeah, Sadie Sink.
Yeah, Sadie Sink. And so, obviously from Stranger Things fame, she's going to play his daughter. It just looks like a really beautiful film, and it looks like, by all accounts from all the film festivals, it looks like this is our lead male performance for the Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be the one to beat. So, yeah, looking super stoked to it. And here's the thing with Aronofsky: if someone were to recommend me, hey, I want to get into his films, which ones should I start with? I'm not going to tell you to start with Requiem. That's going to scare you.
Nope.
I'm going to tell you not to start with Pi, because that is a really fucked up fever dream.
Absolutely not.
not going to tell you to start with Mother because you might think he's a pretentious a-hole. Which, and same with The Fountain. You might be like, what the hell is this? The two films, I'm assuming The Whale's going to be in the same vein, but the two films I would start you out with are like The Wrestler and The Whale, and like kind of get you a little bit more grounded with like some of his dramas first. They're more just about the people. Then you can kind of go up to his weird stuff. But yeah, I was so blown away by The Wrestler and like Mickey Rourke's performance and just that whole story of this aging wrestler not being able to let go of his past and move forward and deal with the problems that he's got in his life and all that stuff. It was just such a wonderful film. And so I want to forget about Black Swan. Yeah, I would recommend you that one. But yeah, with The Whale, it's going to be in the same vein as The Wrestler, and I couldn't be more excited. I feel like this might be one of the films that might give Everything Everywhere All at Once a run for its money. And if I had two A24 films as my top two, I would not be upset. So
Yeah, I mean, all the praise that has come out about this movie from the various film festivals it's shown at is so reassuring to me. Even the people that are walking out of the movie not really caring for it, just hearing all this love and praise towards Brendan Fraser is just really beautiful to me because I'm sure you grew up probably watching some of his movies as a kid. I grew up watching some of his movies as a kid. And just to see him now coming back, starring in a film from Darren Aronofsky, who, he had talked about how he spent years trying to find the perfect person to play this character. And he just saw someone in Brendan Fraser. And now Brendan Fraser probably owes so much to Aronofsky. Like, he's given him a chance. He saw someone in him. And now this film is going around all over the world, and everyone's giving him long standing ovations, which is just so beautiful to me. It makes me teary eyed just thinking about it. I'm just so happy for the guy, and I'm so excited to see this. I'm a huge fan of Aronofsky. I think it's so cool that he's working with A24. He's never worked with A24 before, and I'm really happy for Brendan Fraser because honestly, he always seemed like a very charismatic, likable guy, and it's really unfortunate what happened to him and how he basically got blacklisted from Hollywood. And he went through all this other traumatic stuff in his personal life, and now he's getting a chance to finally come back. And yeah, it seems to be likely to win the Oscar for Best Actor. And I'm telling you, that hands down is going to be one of the most beautifully moving speeches in the entire Oscar history. Like, not just in our lifetime, but just I think in general. It's a beautiful story that he's had been gone for so long, and now he's coming back to the forefront, and it just moves me, and I'm so excited to see the film. It's my most anticipated film for the rest of the year. As a fan of Aronofsky, as someone who grew up loving Brendan Fraser, I mean, listen, I watched The Mummy on loop as a kid, but Looney Tunes Back in the Action was my shit growing up. I fucking love that movie. That's a masterpiece. I don't care what anyone fucking says. If you disagree, you can come at me. Space Jam is not the better Looney Tunes film from that time. I'm sorry, but it's true. Anyway, yeah, I mean, A24 has so many films coming out that I'm excited for, but The Whale, hands down, is the one that I'm most amped to see, without a doubt.
yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's just it's crazy to me that it's almost October. We have 2 months left, and we have so many more films to see. But I'm glad that that one is sticking out in the forefront as one of our most anticipated.
Same here, same here. And then the one last thing that I want to give a shout out to before we close out the episode is A24 these last few years has dabbled into television. They're not just known for their film work, they've actually dabbled into television as well. The biggest thing that they've done on TV, of course, is Euphoria, which obviously feels very A24. I love season 1 of Euphoria. I will be honest, I liked season 2, and I think we talked about this. I enjoyed season 2, but I wasn't as wowed by it as I was with season 1. But I am very curious to see where season 3 goes when it comes out in 7 years from now, because of how busy Zendaya is. But yeah, I like that A24 has dabbled into TV, and now they have the other show coming out from Sam Levinson called The Idol, which stars The Weeknd and Johnny Depp's daughter Lily Rose. And another show that they have coming out that really sounds cool is a show called The Sympathizer with Robert Downey Jr., directed by Park Chan-wook, who's one of the best international directors we have working today. yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that A24 has dabbled their way into television. I know that you're also a fan of Euphoria, so like, how do you feel about them dabbling into TV?
No, I think it's great. Like you said, Euphoria like fits their aesthetic, and I love the fact that for the second season of Euphoria, they brought back Kodak film from like
Yeah.
the brink of death, or like I guess like in the afterlife, because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't exist, and so they opened up a whole. I believe they had money to open up a whole plant just to get more get film for that production. And I'm like, but it looks so crisp. It's got the right amount of film grain. It looks vintage. It's an amazing look. So I think it was worth it. But that type of show is totally up their alley. And of course, they got that show Rami, which is going to have their
Yeah.
third season here pretty soon. So they got a lot of TV shows coming out. But yeah, my favorite one thus far is Euphoria, and so I'm looking forward to The Idol, and hopefully they can do more television. I think I oh man, can you imagine if they're just so well known for film, and then they drop the ball on us, and they're like, we're partnering with like Netflix or Peacock or something to do like a
Oh,
10-part series of this
oh,
story. I'd be like,
oh man.
that'd be crazy if they started
That would be
doing that.
insane. I mean, they're already starting to have this partnership with Apple when it comes to distributing their films, but like,
But didn't they just sign up with, or didn't they get bought out by, not bought out, but like didn't Warner Brothers scoop them up or something, or Universal? I
they have
forgot
some,
who's
they're having some kind of deal with like one of those studios. I know
one of
exactly
them.
what you're
Yeah,
talking about, but I don't know which studio it is. But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy how A24 is pumping out all this stuff, like film and television. It's incredible. Like the grind doesn't stop for them, which is why we love them so much. So I guess sprinkling into our closing thoughts, A24 is really one of the best in the business today. Yes, they have some clunkers, but who doesn't? They just find a way of tackling pretty much everything, finding the way to appeal towards everybody. And it's amazing the amount of work that they've done, the eclectic lineup that they have, the eclectic lineup that they're about to have. We love A24. And, some people online like to joke, like, oh, I'm a true film fan if I just love A24. Like, some people like to joke around about that stuff. But really, A24, when you think about it, they pump out a lot of the best films that have come out these last few years. And they're going to continue doing that because that's just who they are. We love A24, and they're just really one of the best.
yeah. No, I agree. They're the HBO staple amongst the other independent film studios. They just
Mm-hmm.
are. They are the gold
100%.
standard right now. I think Neon is probably second behind them.
Yes.
But like, yeah, I'm glad that like A24 is establishing their own self and their brand and just like what they do, and like they compete with like the Disneys and the Warner Brothers and the Paramounts and stuff, and like it's just incredible to me that they can have that much clout for not even being in business for 10 years yet. Like they still haven't even reached 10 years. Like their
Yeah.
first film was in 2013, which
Mm-hmm.
was the Charles Swan one
Oh,
with Charlie Sheen.
awful film. Terrible film to
A
start
lot of
with.
people a lot of people tend to forget that. And then their second one was Ginger and Rosa, and then their third one, which is their one that they started getting known for, which was Spring Breakers. So, yeah, no, they're here to stay. I can't wait to continue to watch whatever they scoop up or whatever they want to make on their own. They're just truly the kings and queens of the independent film world right now in terms of distribution.
100%. 100%. Chase, my friend, it's been an honor having you on. I'm so glad that we got to gush about A24. Thank you so much for coming on today. Seriously, it was such a blast having you on. It felt like the old days talking with you about film and gushing about it and not shutting up about it. It felt nice. So really, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate your listeners not getting used to 3 hour long podcasts, because what you and I we Brian and I we have an issue to where we sometimes we can't edit ourselves. We can't really stop. So like that's why like our episodes would just trail for super long. So now your listeners will get a taste of that. But yeah, thanks for having me on, man. If you guys want to find me on social media, it's Real Chase Lee, REEL Chase Lee, YouTube, Twitter, same name, Reel Me In, Cole in the Movie Podcast. I'm on all types of podcast and listening platforms. So support me, support your boy Brian. you guys know what to do. But yeah, it was fun, man. Just like the good old days.
Yeah, it felt nice. It felt nice to talk with you again. And seriously, guys, give Chase a follow. All his links will be in the description below. If you guys want to follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Letterboxd at Bryan Suffield. Subscribe to this show wherever you're listening to it. We have a YouTube channel. Subscribe to that as well. Share this around. Guys, we have so much great content coming your way in the next couple of weeks. We have so many great episodes lined up, so many great guests lined up. It's going to be a great couple of weeks for this show. So really, guys, stay up to date with us. Follow us, support us. Really, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you so much for the fans. I'm seriously so grateful for everybody here that listens. I love all of you, each and every one of you, even if I don't know your names, that's totally fine. But yeah, seriously, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And I will see you guys for the very next episode of Film Fragments. Take care, everybody.